In this video, we have got a 106 kill game on Manhattan Conquest with the M60 LMG, where in this game we also come top of the leaderboard out of both sides for score. Stick around in this video. In just a moment's time, I'm going to flash up on screen the gun build which I'm using, and then we'll get into the pros and cons of this gun to help us understand how you want to be playing with it and using it, and then we'll get into Manhattan Conquest in itself and how you want to be playing that map to, of course, find the most amount of enemies, to be able to get the most amount of kills, to drain the most amount of tickets, and also to be able to help defend and attack the flags for your team. And just before we get into the pros and cons, I want to make a note of the gun build that was there on screen a second ago. I have got mastery level 43, and so it is a gun build which I would recommend you to use. It might be able to be tweaked slightly. I've not gone through absolutely every single possible combination thus far, but this is the gun build that I would recommend at the moment, unlike my previous 100 games where I'm still in progress of leveling up the guns as I hit those high kill games and made the videos. So let's get into the pros and cons of the M60 and how you want to use it. Now initially, the M60 was a very frustrating gun to use. I instantly said in my head, this is one of the worst guns in the game due to its slow fire rate and of course now having much smaller maps, which is why it took me until around mastery level 40 to be able to hit this game after getting the current gun build which I'd shown. So this gun comes packed with many different pros and many different cons, of which we'll start off with the pros, which of course is going to be the 100 rounds which you get, a standard amount pretty much for all the LMGs in the game, but of course against everything else in the game it is significantly higher, so always a positive for maximizing your kill potential per magazine. You can go for a 50 round option, which just uses the belt of ammunition and completely removes the box, and this will have a positive impact in terms of halving the time, or more than halving the time, of your reload time. And I did thoroughly test this option out, but I found it quite frustrating because of the low accuracy of this gun, because of its high recoil. I found that I wasn't getting that many kills per 50 rounds, and I was spending, as much time reloading while watching enemies running around on the screen that I couldn't shoot at. Now this game is so chaotic with the maps so small, and you also don't stay alive as long. The majority of the time you're going to die before you get through this 100 round mag on a slow fire rate LMG. So for the most part, I found it a lot easier to simply just go on a kill rampage with your 100 rounds and try and get as many kills as you can before you die, because in most cases you don't need to suffer through the long reload time that this gun has. In Battlefield 6, you either have got non-stop chaos all the time, and if you do get a chance to reload, you'll know you have a chance to reload because the area will suddenly be cleared, the flag will suddenly be cleared, and you will have, specifically on Manhattan Bridge, you will have 5 to 10 seconds to run and move to another location or to get a reload in behind cover before moving on. So it's one or the other, hence why I suggest sticking with the 100 rounds. In terms of the other pros of this gun, it is a king when it comes to tap fire ability, and this is also helped out by its bullet velocity, which is around 900 meters a second in this current build. And lastly, in terms of the pros, it has a very high damage of 33, of course at the closest ranges before any drop off, which can make it 3 to 4 bullets to kill. If you do land a headshot or an enemy is partially damaged, you're always going to get 3 bullets or less to get a kill. So to put it into perspective in terms of the ammo capacity of 100 and the damage model, even if we said the damage you were doing per bullet was 25, so even accounting for a bit of damage drop off, you could actually still get around 25 kills per magazine with this. Of course, that's providing 100% accuracy, but therefore the potential, or the kill potential per magazine, is one of the highest in the game because of its damage model and because of the mag size. Okay, so that brings us now onto the cons of the gun. Now, one of the first cons of the gun is going to be the recoil. There is moderate to large recoil. Even though it's a slow fire rate gun, it still has quite a lot of kick, and hence why I'm pretty much tap firing for the majority unless I'm within 20 to 30 meters of the targets. Even so, I start missing a lot of bullets because of bloom and because of the recoil. So tap fire is absolutely key. Other disadvantages of the M60, includes the fact that you cannot switch fire modes to semi-auto. Now, given that you want to be using this gun for the majority of the time in tap fire or in semi-auto mode to improve your accuracy, semi-auto mode or switching to semi-auto mode rather than tap firing in full auto generally can reduce the recoil which you have with the gun and can make it a lot more accurate by putting it in semi-auto mode. Now, unfortunately, the M60 does not have that option, so you are left to only tap fire while in full auto. And very briefly, in terms of the other disadvantages, it comes in with a very slow fire rate of 514 rounds per minute. Now, some people will see this as an advantage because, the slower fire rate will make you be more careful with the shots you're doing, or at least you'll notice each shot you're doing and shoot less bullets at each enemy, which will allow you to, focus on getting more kills per magazine than you will with the high fire rate LMGs. The reload time is more than 7 seconds when you have the 100 round option selected. So, you've got to be very careful where you're reloading, making sure you're in or around cover while doing so. And of course, always checking the area before you do go and do the reload. And lastly, the hip fire also is not very good. It's very 50-50. If I've got the gun very up close and someone pushes me, if they do miss a few shots, then I've got a good chance of getting the kill. Otherwise, the accuracy with the hip fire is not viable and it's probably preferable to switch to your pistol. And I would note that hip fire is not the most important thing when it comes to LMGs, of which the LMGs you're going to be, specifically holding a position that is normally a medium distance away from the enemy because you have a slow reload time and you don't want to get pushed while you're reloading. So, of course, giving yourself that bit of distance between yourself and the enemies to be able to get those reloads in before being pushed. But if you did see my last 100 kill game with an LMG, which was the M123K, you will have seen how I said that the hip fire is actually quite good. So good that you can actually land a couple of shots while hip fire shooting while trying to ADS, which can help massively with the LMGs with slow ADS times on these much closer range maps. So I would therefore highlight this as a key disadvantage, of course, versus what you could get in terms of hip fire with the other LMGs in the game. Okay, so that pretty much covers the pros and cons of this gun, and it probably gives a lot of hints as to how you want to be playing with this gun. Now, in terms of playing with this gun then, generally, it is an LMG with a slow fire rate. You can't just simply go run around, run and gun with a poor hip fire gun that is obviously poor at close range. A slow fire rate, which will therefore have a slow time to kill, versus any of the other fast fire rate, SMGs, assault rifles, or shotguns that you're going to meet up close, where they're going to be at their max damage range before any bullet, before any damage drop off, if I can get my words out. And so ultimately, the key to this gun is to stay at medium to long range, holding a key power position, such as where I am now. I'm off of the ground floor here, so I'm away from chest height, where players are going to be, of course, running around, and that height level which they're aimed at. And it's a clear, route or path here where I can watch over A flag, as well as the main central flag on the map of C. So again, holding a key position, cutting off all the routes of where the enemies can run to and from, and trying to do as little running as possible when playing with the LMGs to avoid, of course, encountering those massive disadvantages of ADS time, of hip fire, and of course the fire rate in this instance. A further final thing to add with regards to the gun and the gun build before going into how to play on Manhattan Bridge is going to be about the thermal sight which I'm using. This is the first time I've used a thermal sight in Battlefield 6, and it's obvious to see how clear and easy it is to spot enemies. And I really do therefore think that the thermal scope is a must-have attachment for the M60. Now, you know how poor the visibility is in Battlefield 6, graphically, as well as just in terms of the colour scheme of the game. It can be very hard to spot and see the enemies at distance and what specific movements which they're going to make. The thermal scope makes it so clear that it makes it really easy to track each individual movement, which when you're firing a lot slower, because you're tap firing, can make it really easy, in large crowded areas with loads of obstacles, to pinpoint where an enemy is. Even if they've only got a small part of their body sticking out, you can easily see it and therefore tap fire it. Okay, so finally then, in terms of Manhattan Bridge, what do you want to be doing to get the most amount of kills, and of course to help your team out as much as possible? The center of the map, where I am right now, surrounding C flag, is going to be the most densely populated area of the map, where the majority of all players, teammates and enemies alike, are always going to be. You've got 4 main entrances, which you can see, from all 4 different directions onto the flag to be able to spot and see and kill enemies. The best thing you can do is to try and stay on the outsides of one of the 4 entrances and look into the flag, where there's hardly any cover for the enemies, who also have to look and check for 4 different directions all at once. So it's very hard for the enemies to try and control their gunfights that they get into, because they might be getting attacked from so many different directions. So try and stick around each of the 4 areas as best as you can, such as on the rooftops here, which can cover off 2 of the entrances, or jumping down to my left there and simply, as you've seen in many of the clips in this video, guarding that entrance with the thermal scope and taking out as many enemies as you can. In terms of other areas that you want to be careful of on this map, if the enemy has B flag, this side or area of the map, on this side of C flag, is an area you want to avoid or be extremely careful with, because the enemies have the highest point of high ground in the game to look down and shoot at you. So make sure you use smokes when you're trying to, cover the entrance to C flag that is behind me if the enemies have B flag, or simply rotate around to a different entrance. Or, of course, try and push up onto B flag and try and capture it, which I wouldn't recommend if you're using an LMG, because that is going to be a close quarters engagement up on B flag. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the video. If you have watched this far, please smash a like for me. Do consider subscribing if you're not already, and I will see you on the next one.